What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of SEC State of Mind. I'm Taylor Davis. He's Jason Campbell. We welcome you in, everybody. Seems like our episode last week caused some conversation, debate, if you will, but that's how we like it around here, okay? We had some fun with it. So if you didn't see our episode last week, make sure you go check it out. We did our top 5 SEC foods, campuses, stadiums. It was a lot of fun. So make sure you go check that out, along with the episodes before that of all of our guests that we've been having this summer. So it's been a lot of fun so far. And next week is SEC Media Days. So you know we're going to have plenty to talk about. Lots of headlines coming out of that down in Tampa. So for this week, Jay and I are just going to get you ready for SEC Media Days, some of the top storylines, things to look out for, maybe some players to be listening in on, guys that Jason has pegged as potential impact guys. So we've got an exciting episode for you. Jay is rocking his FIFA swag because my guy's been a soccer fan this summer. What are your thoughts so far, Jay? Give us your analysis.
I tell you what, I actually went to the first game when Spain played here in Atlanta.
That's
and cool. The score ended up being 0-0, right? They played Cape Verde, and that was their first year in the tournament, in the World Cup.
Yeah.
And they took them all the way to 0-0 with the end score. So you thought like, oh, okay, Spain's in trouble. They're not going to make it, right?
Right.
And then lo and behold, it almost like it woke them up. And here they are in the finals. And, you know, Messi, think about this. The preseason game was technically, or we call it a warm-up game, was in Auburn.
Yep.
Right. And Messi ended up having a goal there. And who would have known that they was going to go on and beat a team that go and play in the finals against Spain.
Yeah.
So you knew they had a shot anytime that Messi's on the team. And that pass that he made yesterday on that kick was phenomenal. Like, that just, like, shows you, like, sometimes his highlights are just crazy ridiculous. But the more I learned about soccer, I've gotten more in tune.
Okay.
And when you actually go to the game with someone that knows it, like I did, they was teaching me along the way. And after that, I started watching the entire World Cup. So I've been very in it.
It's funny because, like, I don't know if it was like this for you in Mississippi, I would assume, but like I didn't know anyone that played soccer growing up. We didn't have a soccer team at my high school. It like wasn't a thing. Mm-hmm. And obviously getting out of my little bubble of small town Alabama and realizing how prominent the sport is even in the States, obviously, but it totally wasn't when I was growing up. And so it's a sport that even through my career, I've been around the least, I would say. And so I wasn't as well versed. And if you don't understand soccer, it really can seem, no one come for me because I don't feel this way, but it can seem boring if you don't know what you're looking for. Because like you said, that score was 0-0. Like what? Like especially if you're accustomed to like football, basketball, where there is something going on the entire time. But if you understand soccer, there is something going on the entire time. It's just, you really have to understand it. So I feel like I've gotten a little bit better during this World Cup. Obviously, I just like the competition aspect, so that's fun. But I think by the next one, I'll really be a little more locked in. But going in person would be sick. So I'm glad you got to do that.
The biggest thing is the fans, right?
Yeah.
So when you're at the event, you see all these fans that travel who knows how many miles to get here.
Yeah.
And you think about the prices, right? So one thing I give the ownership of the Atlanta Falcons, their owner who brought soccer to Atlanta with the Atlanta United, he doesn't change his price. He doesn't change his prices at the concession stands.
That's good.
So people was buying like whole pizzas, 12 slices for like $12.
Wow.
And you know, you can get a burger still for like $2.50, $3. Yeah. Where everywhere else they was raising them like $10 for a burger, $25 for a piece. I'm like, man, these people travel all over the country to come here.
All over the world.
Spending on hotels.
Yeah.
And most families I saw was families of 4. Like it'd be mom, dad, little kids. So that's plane tickets. And they don't stay in one city. So if Argentina was winning in Kansas City and they go to Dallas, and they come to Atlanta, they go back to Kansas City, back to Atlanta. How many flights and hotels? And now they're going to New York where you know it's expensive. So people are setting aside a lot of money to follow the World Cup. So I respect it for sure.
That's really cool. Well, it's been fun. We'll see what transpires in the final this weekend. And then we have even more exciting news. SEC Media Days. That's coming at you Monday through Thursday next week down in Tampa. Going to hit on the schedule. The players have been announced that will be attending for each school. So Jay and I are going to go through and kind of give you our top storyline, maybe something that we're eager to hear about for each day next week. Now, as always, all of the SEC Media Days coverage will be live on SEC Network, so you can keep it locked Monday through Thursday. See the coaches up at the podium. They'll have a studio show breaking down all of these teams. It's a great way to kind of familiarize yourself as we get closer and closer to season, and so many of these teams have a lot of newness that we got to familiarize ourselves with. So starting on Monday, like I said, down in Tampa, the schedule has Kentucky, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Tennessee in town on Monday. So Kentucky, obviously one of the new coaches in the SEC, Will Stein. They will be bringing safety Ty Bryant, quarterback Kenny Minchie, and tight end Willie Rodriguez. And then Missouri is going to have Coach Drinkwitz, along with offensive lineman Caden Green, running back Jamal Roberts, and linebacker Nicholas Rodriguez. Oklahoma will have, of course, Brent Venables, quarterback John Mateer, offensive lineman Eddie Pierre-Lewis, and defensive lineman Taylor Wine. And Tennessee will have Josh Heupel, running back Deshaun Bishop, linebacker Arion Carter, and linebacker Jeremiah Tellender. So out of those four first day of SEC Media Days, what's a storyline that you kind of have your eye on, or maybe something you're curious about regarding these four teams?
Well, the first is Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
The quarterback. It always starts with the quarterbacks, all right? So you think about Kenny Minchie coming from Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Not a ton of experience, correct? A lot of high hopes. He's a Tennessee native. It's All-American in high school, and people are looking at his opportunity. Then you get the offensive coordinator, becomes the head coach that comes over from Oregon, all right? So now, and Coach Will Stein. So now you're looking at like, okay, can these two be a match in heaven? Can they turn Kentucky program back to the days of Tim Couch and Hal Mumme? When they was letting that thing fly and up and down the field with Craig Yeast playing receiver. I know, Taylor, you only know if he was born back then, but
I am so young, Jason. Thank you for pointing it out.
Kentucky team, because they was the air raid, right? They brought air raid to the SEC, and of course everyone thinks it was Florida and everything, the way they used to throw the ball, but Kentucky with Hal Mumme and Tim Couch did it as well. So I'm interested to see how Minchie handles the SEC Media Days, because it says a lot. Guy just transferred there, and now all of a sudden he's there in SEC Media Days.
Just transferred and wasn't the guy at Notre Dame. So this is a totally new role that he is taking on. But if you look at Will Stein's track record, specifically with quarterbacks, this guy's had success after success after success. And when he came on our podcast, shameless plug, make sure you go check the episode with Coach Stein if you haven't already. He told me that, when they were considering Minchie, he was asking a lot affiliated with Notre Dame, like, what's the read on him? And everyone said we had full confidence that the job could have been his just as well. So I'm very excited about that one. I also, something I'm really hopeful that we get a little bit of is an Ahmad Hardy update from Coach Drinkwitz, because we haven't really gotten a ton about that. And obviously, beyond the game of football, all that matters is that guy is healthy and continuing to improve. Beyond that, the question is there any sort of understood timetable of his availability this season? It feels insane to even bring up the game given what happened to him, but it is a natural question because this guy was the SEC's leading rusher a year ago and chose to stay in Columbia. So much of that offense was going to work around him with a new quarterback, Austin Simmons, coming in, which I do think is interesting that he's not one of the guys going. I was hoping to hear from Austin Simmons a little bit, but several of these schools opted to not bring their new quarterback. We'll get to that in a minute, but this is one of them that caught my attention of, oh man, like that, we know he's going to be the guy. So I really would have loved to hear from him, especially given he was the guy this time last year at a different SEC program. So interested to hear from Coach Drinkwitz. There's a lot of question marks around Missouri. I think that defense returns 0 starters. And new quarterback Chip Lindsey will now be calling the plays for them offensively. So there's a lot of change there, but really hoping that we get some good news regarding Ahmad Hardy. So
The
that,
thing
oh yeah, go.
Oh, my bad. Just tag on to what you just said about Missouri. So Chip Lindsey was at Auburn before, right?
Yep.
So I know Chip really well.
Mm-hmm.
Offensive mind. He was at Michigan lately, and now he's back in the SEC at Missouri. So you see a lot of familiar faces, right? Like interchanging a lot of these positions. The one thing I have to say about the Ahmad Hardy situation, if there's 2 years kind of in a row that we've seen a running back in this league, have to deal with a shooting, right?
Yep.
We talk about Brian Battie at Auburn.
Yep.
All right, he goes home. He's out with his with friends and family, and all of a sudden, his brother gets shot. He gets shot, and unfortunately, his brother passes. Right.
Yeah.
And now in this situation, the things about Ahmad Hardy, he's home. He's out with some friends, and supposedly, I guess the people that end up hurting him was people that he knew really well. Right. So it just goes to show you, like, if you're a young kid, man, and you're successful and you got a lot going for you, not everyone's happy for you.
Yeah.
Not everyone's excited to see you, what we say, on top.
Yeah.
And so you have to be very careful about your surroundings. Like if you go with a crowd, my boy Ronnie Brown always says this all the time. He says a nickel is bigger than a dime, but a dime is more money. He say, but you don't want a bigger crowd around you because it brings more attention.
Sure.
The nickel, you keep a smaller crowd around you, but that nickel, it looks bigger, but it's smaller. I mean, it is bigger, but it's bigger than the dime. It's somehow he says that way, but it's just the whole point of it is don't feel like you got to have a crowd around you to make you feel like you're somebody. Some of the most important people I know are either walk by themselves or walk with 2-3 people, but you hardly ever see them with a crowd of people just around them every time they go somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely such a tragedy, and obviously Brian Battie's future was forever impacted by that night, and hopefully Ahmad's return is going to be a bit more doable for him, and so I'm hoping that we get some sort of update on that. Will also be interesting, kind of the vibe around. I'll be honest, Josh Heupel doesn't give you anything. My guy's got quite the poker face. You never know what the heck Josh Heupel's really feeling. But Deshaun Bishop, that guy, I mean, like, he's a stud. Those guys are, they're veteran, they're experienced. I'll be curious kind of what their aura is around SEC Media Days. Again, another team that will be replacing a quarterback. That defense gave up 34 points per game against SEC competition last year. Jim Knowles takes over now, though, and he's just 2 years removed from a national championship at Ohio State. So really intrigued by Tennessee. I feel like I don't really have a good gauge on them at this point. So SEC Media Days at least gives you some sort of temperament of what they're going to be kind of carrying into kickoff. Well, obviously, like I said, there are several metrics that are being utilized for predictions and expectations with preseason rankings, and our friends over at FanDuel also have some odds for you as we get ready for SEC regular season to kick off. Different programs that they are expecting to go on a run and the different odds for all of the teams. And no surprise, maybe a little bit of surprise given the ranking that we just talked about. But our friends at FanDuel have Texas with the highest odds to get that SEC championship at +13, followed closely by Georgia, A&M, Bama, and then LSU. Interesting to see how those fare. Ole Miss, Tennessee, Florida, Auburn, and Kentucky. So that's where things are sitting right now. Any of that surprise you, Jay?
Yeah, Alabama's sitting there at number 4. Don't come from Alabama fans. I'm just saying, you don't know who your quarterback is just yet. You haven't showed us you can run the football. And we got a lot to see how better have you become since the end of last season, because the last 2 games didn't show well. So I just don't like Alabama in that 4th spot, and I probably would swap LSU and Texas A&M.
Yeah.
LSU at 3. Then I have Texas 1st, Georgia 2nd, probably LSU 3rd, and then A&M.
Okay.
I would probably put Ole Miss above Bama.
Wow.
And I would probably put Bama.
Okay.
Right. But all that could be wrong, right? Like,
I know.
Alabama can show me they can run the football, and the quarterback has experience, which they don't yet because they haven't played. So
Right.
you got to prove that aspect of it before, and that's why I put Ole Miss over just because of Shamlis and Lacey.
Sure. Some
You
of
know,
the returners. No, I totally get that. And honestly, that wasn't even Bama at a 4 spot. That had Bama tied with A&M at plus 350. So really interesting there. I totally agree. I think I would bump LSU. And like I said on the other index, I would have Georgia ahead of Texas at this point. But until we spot the ball, we don't really know anything. So it's a good time for SEC Media Days to help us get ready.
yeah. And Georgia goes to Texas this year, which I know they beat them 2 years there before. So, but I don't think they beat them 3 years in a row.
Tuesday, we will get a look at our Tigers, or a listen into our Tigers. Auburn will, of course, have Alex Golish, quarterback Byron Brown, defensive back Champ Anthony, and kicker Alex McPherson. Georgia, Kirby Smart, offensive lineman Drew Bobo, quarterback Gunnar Stockton, and linebacker Raylan Wilson. South Carolina, Shane Beamer, wide receiver Nick Harbor, quarterback Lenora Sellers, and defensive back Peyton Williams. They brought some big names. Love that. And Vanderbilt, Clark Lee, running back Cedric Alexander. I'm a huge fan of Ceddy. He's awesome. Defensive lineman Issa Oyuatara. I have no idea. I'm so sorry. I am too Southern for a name like that. Okay. I haven't gotten the pronunciation guide for that one. My apologies. And wide receiver Junior Sherrill. Things that stood out to me on that one, I think it's obvious how much Golish believes in Byron Brown, not just as his quarterback, but to bring him into this environment, knowing that there's going to be some direct and hard-hitting questions thrown his way, but he believes that he can handle it. And I say that, I think a lot of people would hear that and be like, well, duh. But you look at some of these other lists, not every coach is bringing their quarterback, okay? So I think it's a nod of confidence in how Byron can conduct himself as the face of the program and the leader of the team in a situation like this. So really glad that will be the case, along with Champ Anthony, who did great last year. Same thing with Georgia. I want to hear from Gunnar Stockton and kind of feel the same aura and confidence that we're accustomed to seeing from him. South Carolina brought some of their big names that they were able to retain, which I think is great. And then Vanderbilt, I get not bringing Jared Curtis. He's so young. I mean, he's a true freshman. He's just getting settled. The school he was initially committed to, ironically, is on this same day. He was supposed to go to Georgia, and then he flipped to Vandy. So no surprise that we aren't going to be seeing them. But I mean, Vanderbilt coming off the greatest 2-year stretch in their history, and these guys are going to have to answer the very obvious question of how do you keep it going. So this day will be very interesting as well. I'm looking forward to hearing from all 4 of these.
Yeah, I like this group. You're talking about veteran quarterbacks and Gunnar Stockton and Lenora Sellers and Byron, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't in the SEC. He's still a veteran quarterback. You know, he's had a lot of success at South Florida. He's a dual threat quarterback, pretty much just like the other 2. You know,
Yeah.
Lenora Sellers made his name off being a dual threat quarterback. Gunnar Stockton the same way, right? So you talk about Gunnar's, tough as nails. Now, this guy has had to answer a lot of questions and pressure of, who's going to take over at that position after 2 national championships. And he's done a successful job, and I would say so far. When you think about Lenora Sellers, they didn't have the year they wanted to have last year. He's projected to be a top 5 draft pick. So I just think with him, it's all about his questions is probably going to be, how do you learn from last season? How do you guys be better this year? And having his big receiver there, Nick Harper, like he's there, right? You're talking about a guy that can take the top off any defense. So bringing that combination there. Then you think about Georgia with Bobo, right? The offensive lineman. His dad is the offensive coordinator. The connection there, right? I got a chance to meet him when he was in high school, and he played at Auburn High when his dad was the coordinator at Auburn. So, a tremendous kid that got hurt towards the end of last year, I think, which kind of hurt the offensive line play for Georgia going into the playoffs, right? When you think, going to the SEC championship game, when you think about not being able to play in that game, that hurts because he's a big part of it. And that's the reason why he's at SEC Media Days.
Right.
When you think about Auburn, Champ Anthony, but McPherson to me, right? McPherson, like this guy's story, if you haven't followed his story and don't know what he's had to overcome to even be in the position he's in to still be playing football, then you
Yeah.
need to go read it, because
Mhm.
his story teaches you a lot about life, as well as how this kid has fought to stay
Mhm.
and continue to play the game that he loves, when at one point he didn't even know if he was going to have a chance to even be like just standing straight and narrow,
Mhm.
to be honest. So just to see how he's overcome and how he's gotten married, maturity, and all these different things, right? Like, he's a kicker on a team, but he's so important to the
Oh,
environment.
yeah, he's much more than a kicker.
Yeah, and then you think about Champ. Champ's going through so many injuries. For 2 years in a row, he started the season off great and got derailed by injuries.
Yep.
I'm looking forward for this year, hopefully, prayerfully for him, that he can have a full season, because his energy,
Oh,
his
yeah.
toughness, like how Champ got to Auburn wasn't like a 4 or 5-star type deal. Like, he got to Auburn a different way. So he's worked his way up to the top, and I'm hoping this year it rewards him with his
Yeah.
work ethic. So I like those guys. I like that Byron's there. Coach has so much confidence in Byron. He's the leader of the football team. Like I said, he transitioned from South Florida to Auburn, but the expectations are still there,
Oh,
right? The
yeah.
expectation for him to have a big season for Auburn is there. He can't do it by himself, but I think if Auburn's going to have the season they want to have, it's going to start with Byron.
100%. It has to. And Golish knows that as well. So excited that the two of them will be there. Moving on to Wednesday, we will hear from Alabama. That is Kalen DeBoer, defensive back Xavier Brown, wide receiver Ryan Williams, and defensive back Bray Hubbard. Florida, another new head coach, John Sumrall, bringing running back Jaden Baugh, linebacker Miles Graham, and wide receiver Vernell Brown III. Ole Miss, Pete Golding, quarterback Trinidad Chambliss, defensive tackle Will Eccles, and running back Kewan Lacey. And Texas A&M's Mike Elko, linebacker Damian Sanford, safety Marcus Ratcliffe, and quarterback Marcel Reed. Obviously, I'm very excited to hear from Coach Sumrall, another guest on the podcast who gave us a lot of insight. But I know there's going to be a lot of questions around the quarterback situation. And obviously, you still have elite offensive weapons. I mean, he's bringing one of them in wide receiver Vernell Brown, running back Jaden Baugh as well. Dallas Wilson will be out wide. That kid's a freak. I think he's dealt with a little bit of injury in the spring, but he's expected to be go. But this defense, another defense that really, that's what's interesting to me looking through all of these notes. The teams that we're really looking at as like kind of on the middle ground of like, are they going to be an 8-win team or are they going to be more like a 4 or 5-win team? It's kind of predicated on the defense. Like so many of these, Tennessee being one of them, the stats that I just read. Same thing with Florida. They allowed 28 points per game. Sumrall's a defensive guy. That's his bread and butter. So I'm very curious to hear a little bit more about their defensive philosophy, how they've been conducting practice, especially in spring ball, specifically on the defensive side of the ball, because that really was the Achilles heel. It overshadowed anything that the offense would have, could have, should have been able to do. So I'm intrigued about specifically Florida defense. And then I really want to hear from Marcel Reed, because I think you need to see another step forward in his evolution. You need to see a little bit more consistency from him, kind of that moxie to be maintained a little bit. Maybe beefed up a little bit, who knows? But I think that Marcel Reed and Florida's defensive philosophy are really the two I'm keyed in on Wednesday, among other things. But those are my top two.
Yeah, that's a good list when you think about Texas A&M, Alabama, Florida, and who's the other one?
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss. Like, geez, like
I know.
Ole Miss could contend for the opportunity to play in the SEC championship, right? When you think about Trinidad Chambliss and all that he learned last year, taking his team to a game before the national championship. Lacey, the dual threat running back, right? So when you think about, what Ole Miss has offensively bringing back, what you don't have is Lane Kiffin and the offensive coordinator, right? So they're both at LSU. So that is a huge part of success, right? So how do you answer the bell if you're Ole Miss without your coordinator and your head coach, right? Like Pete Golden's a defensive guy. Your offense was the one that was winning games last year and selling tickets, not so much your defense, right? So I'd be interested to see how does Ole Miss get better defensively, but it's hard to take someone else's offense and say, I'm going to implement it. So new coordinator has to run his own offense. So how quick does Trinidad Chambliss picks up this new offense? But what kind of chemistry do they have together? When you think about Alabama bringing Ryan Williams, I like that. I like the fact that the kid didn't transfer
Yeah, same.
such a rough season, right? He did had a stellar freshman year. Everyone's like, "Oh man, this kid, boom, 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 he's everything," right? Then this year, fall back down to grace, right? And now all of
Yeah,
a sudden he's at SEC Media Day. So does it shows a sign of maturity that one, he stayed, two, that he's willing to stand in front of the microphone and not run from it and just say, "Hey, it wasn't the year that I had, but he's looking forward to this season. Like he's
totally.
learning from that year. This is still a young man with a lot of talent and everything. And I think that that speaks a lot of volume that coach will still bring him
Yeah.
and everything. So that shows he's had an incredible offseason. When you think about Florida, like you said, defensively, yeah, they're not going to bring a quarterback. If I had a pick on who their quarterback is probably going to be, I would probably say Philo.
Yeah.
He's following Buster Faulkner, who's the offensive coordinator that came over from Georgia Tech.
Yep.
I'll probably say that makes more sense because this guy has been in his system when he was
Right.
at Georgia Tech. So it gives you a leg to start off running quicker, just from that standpoint. But defensively, they're talented. Like
Yeah.
that D line is talented. Like
They always get them.
yeah, they've always had good defensive players. So,
Yeah.
and Summerall, like I said, the motivator that he is, right? The accountability type mentality that he has, I
Right.
think is going to make that team show up. And when you think about Buster Faulkner with the receiver, you talk about Brown the third, like this guy's electric, right? No one's even mentioned that Eric Singleton that was with Buster Faulkner in Georgia Tech before he came to Auburn last year was
Yep.
stellar.
Yep.
And now he's back with his offensive coordinator. So
Mhm.
that receiving core at Florida gives that quarterback position a lot of help. And you
Yep.
match up that defense, watch out for Florida this year,
I
right?
like
They got
that.
some big early games, but watch out.
Yeah.
You think about who's my other one? I'm trying to
A&M.
A&M, Marcel Reed. When you're talking about Marcel Reed, I like what you said. More
Mhm.
consistent in the pocket, right?
Yep.
Like we all know that he can run, he can take off, he can pick up feet. But what people do to him is they say, okay, he likes to run, so if we cut off the rush lanes, does he get antsy in the pocket? And that's when the
Yes.
turnovers happen. That's when he
Yep.
starts to throw those interceptions because he's uncomfortable in the pocket.
Yep.
So he's got to get better between the left tackle and the right tackle, between that 5 to 7 yards within that tackle box of staying in there when he needs to and delivering big throws because
Yep.
teams are going to try to cut off those rush lanes and make him have to read defenses. So if he can take the next step, another guy who has to learn a new offense, right?
Yeah.
Their offensive coordinator takes a job at Kansas State, I believe, somewhere, and now he's learning a new offense this year, right? But they lost a lot of guys on defense.
Yeah.
The defensive front they had last year, those guys were relentless.
Right.
Are they going to be the team that hold teams to 10 points, 12 points, 15 points?
Mhm.
Or this is going to be an offensive team this year to say, hey, go get it, but we still talented enough defense to keep people 21 points and under.
That is true.
So, Elko's a defensive guy. He's determined to not give up points. So they did a great job in the portal again, right? So I expect Texas A&M to make some noise. But Marcel Reed, I believe, between that 5 to 7 yards in that pocket, if he can get better there, then it really makes them a dynamic football team.
I like that point a lot. And also the point you make about how many new coordinators we're also seeing in the conference this year, or just moves at coordinator positions. It's definitely a storyline that will be at play for the first few weeks while they kind of settle into a rhythm. Wrapping things up on Thursday, we will hear from Arkansas, Ryan Silverfield, offensive lineman Caden Kilter, defensive end Quincy Rhodes Jr., running back Sutton Smith, who was a stud, LSU, Lane Kiffin, linebacker TJ Daughtery, tight end Trey'Dez Green, linebacker Whit Weeks. No Sam Levitt. Interesting. Mississippi State, Jeff Lebby, wide receiver Anthony Evans III, cornerback Kelly Jones, and quarterback Kamario Taylor. Young gun getting a nod of confidence being brought to SEC Media Days. And Texas, Steve Sarkisian, offensive lineman Trevor Gooseby, quarterback Arch Manning, and defensive end Colin Simmons. So what stood out to me is what I said, that we will not be hearing from Sam Levitt. And it's very Lane Kiffin, you know what I mean, to not bring him. This guy was the #1 transfer quarterback in the country. He had his hand pick of who he wanted at the quarterback position. And Lane, with his quarterbacks, are like this. It's why he's successful. It's what works for his offensive scheme. So the fact that we're not going to hear from Sam Levitt is a bummer. Now, I understand he has been limited at times this offseason. They probably don't want to have to take questions about that, his status, his health, blah, blah, blah. But when you've got the most highly touted quarterback in the transfer portal this season, so much hinges on the newness of LSU, the decisions that have been made in Baton Rouge to field a team that could contend for championships. And with a coach like Lane Kiffin, the next piece of the puzzle is the quarterback. So I'm very bummed that we're not going to get to hear from Sam Levitt in this situation. But again, feels very Lane Kiffin in all of that. Now, Whitweek's great representative. He's always very insightful and really perceptive of kind of where the team is, the locker room. He's kind of that guy. So I love these other guys, and I think you'll get some good stuff. But not hearing from that quarterback, I think, is certainly a bummer. Meanwhile, you are going to hear from Campbell Taylor at Mississippi State, and I think that's a great opportunity for him. We got to see him toward the end of last season. Blake Shapen just continuously battling injuries, and Campbell Taylor looked the part. He obviously has some growing pains that he was working through, but to stick with this kid, to ride with him, and to have him at the podium so early in his career, I think is great. And then obviously Texas has a lot of expectation, and so it'll be interesting to hear how they're handling all of that. And we've heard from Ryan Silverfield about his approach to this whole thing, so excited to hear from all of those. But yeah, the Sam Levitt thing was what jumped out at me.
Let me go with Mississippi State first.
Okay.
Coach Levy, you're thinking about, Taylor quarterback, a lot of talent there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this guy's talented. The common theme seems to be dual threat quarterbacks. You hardly ever just see a pocket passer anymore, right? It's you better be able to do both if you want to put pressure on defenses. But you think about their corner, though. He's probably one of the top 3 corners in all of college football.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, this guy's elite. Yeah, this guy's elite. He's long. He's in a passing league. And I think his opportunity, the playmaking that he makes, to say, I can shut down this side of the field in man coverage, and you can zone everything else away from me, gives them an opportunity to be better defensively this year, right? So I think they'll be better defensively. Last year, offensively wasn't their problem. Scoring points. Turning the ball over was their problem.
Yeah.
If they could stop turning the ball over, think about it. They had Texas beat. They're up 21 points and give it away in the second half.
Crazy.
They had a couple of teams just right there
on the ropes
to be beat last year, and they turned the ball over at crucial times. And you just either run the ball, or if it's not there, check it down. And they just forced themselves into losses because of the turnover battle. Yeah. When I think about Texas, who does Texas bring in?
Offensive lineman Trevor Gooseby, quarterback Arch Manning, and defensive end Colin Simmons.
Okay, so defensive end Colin Simmons and quarterback. So Arch Manning. So they didn't bring either one of the big star receivers.
Nope.
Interesting. When you think about Arch, right? High hopes. We all know that. Another offseason, though, not being able to be out there with his guys, having to overcome some injuries, surgeries, different things. With a new receiving core, I know Cam Coleman's a big part of it, right? How much chemistry do they have fast enough before they face Ohio State?
Right.
Because Ohio State's going to be coming in there with an NFL head coach, offensive minded, and NFL defensive minded, and Matt Patricia. Then offensively, you got, oh my God, that was at Pittsburgh last year. That's Arthur Smith. So you talk about the challenges that Texas has to overcome early. Yeah. Because if they lose Ohio State 2 years in a row and they start pressing, what happened to them last year? They looked better at the end of the year than they did at the beginning. They started pressing after that loss. Right. And as bad as they played in that game, they still had an opportunity to come back and win it. So we'll see what happens with Texas this year. Like I said, to me, defense, it comes back to their defense. Will Muschamp being the defensive coordinator,
I agree.
I think is going to have those guys playing at another level.
I agree.
If you've ever been around Will Muschamp, energy is not something you have to look for. It's there immediately. Like, the guy waits for that game.
Yes. No, that guy is scary in the best way, for a for a football coach. But honestly, yeah, I've covered him as both a coordinator and a head coach. And there are some guys, and it's not a knock. It just allows you to be more immersed in the X's and O's, the strategy piece of it. And Will Muschamp thrives in that. And he's such a defensive guy. Like, even in his energy, his intensity, I love that point. Everyone wants to drill Texas offense right now. And I'm like, guys, I just think such a piece of this is Will Muschamp taking over the defense. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, Coach. Yeah. Shark's smart, right? So
Shark.
he knows. You know,
Jason, it's Sark. It's
Sark.
no H in there.
Oh no, H. Oh, my bad.
No.
Sarkisian. Sark. He's smart, right?
Yeah.
But every smart offensive coach knows what? I can't win without a defense.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So Indiana, as much as they talk about Mendoza last year, their defense was really good.
Was stout, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So if you're going to compete and win a championship, you better still be able to do two things: run the football and play good defense. Like, passing looks great, but you got to do those two things.
Totally.
At LSU, Lane Kiffin brought his future son-in-law, right? You know, come on, Weeks. Let's have a little time together, you know, away
on
from
the plane.
Yeah, you know, let's have some time to get on the plane. You know,
You're not wrong.
Hey, let's have a little, you know, little real talk.
Little powwow.
Yeah, a little powwow. So I think Lane and, you know, Weeks got a little powwow on the plane and everything, but it's on purpose he don't bring Sam Levitt.
I know.
He doesn't want Sam answering a whole bunch of questions, all these different things. He wants to kind of ride on the radar, but everyone's not completely sold on Sam Levitt yet.
Yeah.
You know, like, let's just be honest. He was good at Arizona State, but everyone's still not completely sold just yet.
Yeah.
And everyone's expecting them to put up 35, 40 points a game because they spent $42 million in the transfer portal, which doesn't guarantee you anything.
Nothing.
So I like that they kept the defensive coordinator.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Huge.
Yeah. I like they kept the defense coordinator. My question for LSU, will they get back to being cornerback U?
Yeah.
Will they get back to seeing those stellar corners that LSU always had when they had really good seasons, and those stellar receivers, right? Would that be the LSU that we've seen in the past when they've been really, really good? So I'm interested to see what LSU do. They got the big left tackle that transferred in, probably the #1 left tackle on the board next year's in the draft. So his left side would be protected. So I just think he did it on purpose, not to create pressure on the young man and kind of let him fly on the radar.
I get it. I'm just disappointed. That's my entire point. But I do. It seems like a very easy decision to make, but I was hoping to hear from him because, hello, they're all media trained. They know what not to say. So you can avoid chaos, but anywho. What?
They're pros. Like, they get paid. He get paid millions of dollars to play quarterback. Like,
which is why I think something like this, like, it's the right thing to have your quarterback at the podium representing your team, especially when, like, so much of the praise, if things go well, will be on Sam Levitt. So just different strokes for different folks. I get it either way, but I was hoping we were going to hear from him. Well, last thing I wanted to do real quick, along with this SEC kind of media days preview, things to be looking for. And obviously we'll get an episode out next week and hit on some of the big storylines out of it. But there are several models that have put out preseason rankings at this point, and SEC rankings according to ESPN's Power Index metric model are out. So I'm going to run through and play a little game of higher, lower, or just right. Okay. So I'm going to tell you, and we're just going to rapid fire through these. And you tell me if you think, just given what you know about them right now, if you would put them higher, lower, or if you think it's just right. All right, here we go. Number 1, according to ESPN's Power Index metric model, let me reiterate that because there's various ones and they kind of differ a little bit. But the one that I'm using through ESPN, Georgia, with the best chance to win the SEC at 22.9%, has them number 1 in the SEC. Higher, lower, or just right?
Lower.
Ooh. You don't you
I just
wouldn't
I'm talking
you
about I
wouldn't
would
have
we
dogs
up
winning
against
it
the
at this
number 1
point.
team to win it in the SEC, but when I think about the teams with the experience, like you think about Texas and you think about, Arch and you think about Oklahoma with Mateer, right? Where Brent Venables got to prove something this year, right? When I think about LSU, Lane Kiffin coming over he got everything he asked for at LSU. All right. So when you think about these teams, and yes, Kirby is the experienced coach, it's the veteran that been there.
Yeah.
But I still don't see enough explosive attack offensively in the passing game for
To
me just
win.
Georgia's number one as the number one team to win it in the SEC this year.
Wow. Okay, see, this is where we differ. If I did a preseason ranking right now for SEC, I would put Georgia at 1. Until they are dethroned for me, they are still the standard. Kirby, Gunnar Stockton, that defense, these guys have been here. They know how to do it. They know how to get it. For me, Georgia's still at the top until I'm proven otherwise. But right behind them at 2 is Texas, 22.7% chance of winning the SEC. Higher, lower, or just right?
Just right. All right. Like you think
Okay.
about the money that they spent and you think about the talent that they accumulated. They went and got the star running back from North Carolina State. They went and got the star receiver from Auburn to add to what's supposed to be already a talented offense, right? So you answer the run game. You give them another big weapon outside of the big kid that they already have. I'm trying to think his name right now.
Uh-huh.
But you got 2 pro receivers. You got a pro running back, a
Yep.
pro quarterback, a pro, offensive line. They supposed to been beefed up this year. And then you get Will Muschamp as a defense coordinator. By whom? Where was he working at before he went to Texas? At Georgia. So he was in Kirby's defensive room for the last few years.
So then why aren't you putting them at 1?
I put Texas at 1.
Oh, well, you said just right at 2.
No, my bad. I meant say
Higher.
yeah, higher. Yeah, I
So
put
you
them
would
at
swap
1. I
Texas
would
and
swap
Georgia.
Texas in Georgia.
Okay. That's fair. Number 3, Alabama. Higher, lower, just right. Let's run through these like rapid fire because we're running out of time.
Lower.
Lower for Bama. I
No,
kind of
no,
feel
no
that
run
too.
game last year. You got to give me some answers with the run game. I got to see who's the running back, and we don't know who the
quarterback.
quarterback is. So you have an inexperienced quarterback that's too high to start off with Alabama.
I completely agree. Number 4, LSU. Higher, lower, just right.
I would put them at number 3.
Okay, so higher. Number 5, Texas A&M.
About right.
I would go lower because they have Oklahoma at 6.
I still put them over Oklahoma until Oklahoma.
Really? Okay.
Oklahoma showed me they can win the big games. And Texas A&M, they did make it to the playoffs last year. They lost to a Miami team that got hot late.
Yeah.
So I like A&M over Oklahoma right now.
Okay. A&M's schedule is much harder this year, though, and that was something that was kind of working against them last season with strength of schedule. Number 7, Ole Miss.
This was hard for me because you got 2 stellars on offense. Defensively, they struggled last year. I know his defensive head coach.
Mm-hmm.
I almost put Florida above them.
I know.
And almost maybe Tennessee. This one is hard for me because they got to learn totally new offense.
Yep.
And everything. So I'm going to go just a little bit lower.
Lower. I agree. You mentioning the defense, they got to replace both edge blockers. Both of them are gone. They have road games at Oklahoma, at Texas, and at Florida. For me, I think Ole Miss's path is harder than people are realizing. They're just seeing that Trinidad and Kewan Lacey are back, and that's given everyone a nod of confidence. I'd go a little lower with Ole Miss as well. What number are we at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Number 8, Tennessee.
You know what? I say about right.
About right? Okay.
About right. Like I said, the Balls, they did have a winning season last year.
Yeah.
The Georgia game, they gave up, for like the 7th year in a row.
Should have been theirs. Yep.
Should have been theirs, right? So they can ever overcome that. I think
Stop me if you've heard it before.
Shot be better. So I say about right.
Okay. What was that? 9? 10, Florida.
I say a little higher.
I think so too.
Like this is one of the talented rosters in the SEC. They didn't lose a bunch in the portal.
That would actually be 9 for Florida. My bad. Florida at 9.
They actually retained some guys. I would actually put Florida ahead of Tennessee.
Me too.
Where's that game at this year? I'm not sure yet.
Which one?
Florida-Tennessee game. I think it's in Florida this year.
I think it's in Florida. Florida also goes to Auburn.
Yeah, that's gonna be a big game for them.
That's gonna be a big game. Week 3.
Yeah, game 3. So we'll
Early.
find out early about the 2 new coaches.
Yep.
New coaches facing off in
Who are familiar with each other.
Mhm.
I would put Florida a little bit higher though right now. I agree with you. Number 10, Missouri.
Lower. When you lose your whole defense, which this team was a run team last year, predicated off their defense holding teams to low scoring averages, where they can kind of control the clock and ball control.
Yep.
If you can't do that, if your defense is giving up points this year. So I would say lower unless they show me early in the season if their defense is still stellar.
That they have an identity with a lot of this newness. I like that. 11, Auburn.
Yeah, I would put Auburn over Missouri.
You'd go higher for Auburn.
I would go higher for Auburn just because of the simple fact you retain the defensive coordinator, right? Defense was top 10 in so many categories last year. You retain a lot of your young talent on defense. And Xavier Atkins, who's been your motor, the tackling machine, is still there.
Yeah.
Right. And then you go get Womack from defensive end from Ole Miss. You add some pieces that make your team better. Now, my concerns are at corner a little bit, right? We don't have a lot of experience at corner. But I think when you think offensive minded, Auburn's defense kept them in every game last year. It was their offense that was in there.
Our defense was scoring sometimes.
So
our offense couldn't.
That's right. Now you add an offense that's been ranked nationally the last few years in the offense. And even when Golders was at Tennessee, they was number 1. So now you bring that to Auburn, match it with this defense. I think this makes Auburn a dangerous football team because they can run the football and they got a quarterback that's a dual threat, that's big. He's experienced. I think Auburn can get hot early. Watch out. Like they could move up higher in that list.
Okay. I'm good with Auburn being higher than 11. I think that's a little low. I agree. South Carolina, 12.
Ooh, I thought they would be higher. Right? You think about the quarterback coming back, the receiver, you lock up your defensive guy, your top defensive edge guy.
Dylan Stewart. It's just based on all we have to go off of is what happened last year.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. That to me drives them for this year. Like they're not going to be the same South Carolina team they were last year. Right? They're more hungry, they're more determined, they're more experienced. And people forget they got Coach Browse as the offensive coordinator. That's a huge leg up.
Agreed.
Offensively, that alone moves them up a couple of spots.
Okay.
So I would definitely say they should be higher.
Okay. Vanderbilt's 13.
This is hard.
I know.
I'll go lower.
Okay.
You got to answer this Diego Pavia questions.
That was quite.
You got to answer Diego Pavia questions.
Yeah.
I know you got Cheryl, the receiver, still there. You got to answer some defensive questions, right? Stove is no longer there, right? That guy was a stud. So you got to answer these questions before I can move you up on this list.
Yep. Okay. So, I would drop them as well. I would drop Missouri. I would drop Vanderbilt. Kentucky at 14.
Shoot, you only got 3 more teams. Kentucky, Mississippi State.
Mississippi State 15, Arkansas dead last at 16.
Well, see, Arkansas, they had a lot to replace. So
I know. They have like 80 new players.
Yeah, they got 80 new players. So I can see like why they're there. But I would put Mississippi State. That's hard. I'll probably put Mississippi State over Kentucky.
Okay.
Just because you got an inexperienced quarterback. Mississippi State quarterback got experience last year, right? So their quarterback got experience last year. And Mississippi State lost some games that they probably should have won against some really, really good opponents.
Right.
So I would probably swap those two. Arkansas will stay where they're at because they got 80 new players. But I can't wait. I can't wait.
I know. Honestly, lest we not forget when, we've had Florida State in the top 3 and then they go on to win a whopping 2 games this season. Like preseason rankings don't mean crap. Let me say it again for the people in the back, but it's something for us to talk about and kind of get the juices flowing, kind of what we're feeling and expecting out of these teams. I am a believer in Kentucky. And I really don't have a ton to go off of when it comes to that, other than just vibes. You know what I mean? But I'm a believer in Coach Stein. I'm a believer in some of the pieces that they've garnered. I think they've been flying under the radar enough that they could catch people by surprise. So I would actually bump Kentucky certainly above Mississippi State, Arkansas, even Vanderbilt. And I really have a lot of questions when it comes to Missouri. A lot of questions.
I just gotta see Kentucky's schedule.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll
do that one episode too. Go over schedules and kind of evaluate who could get tripped up where, because all of these are, because honestly, that I would say I feel confident about like the Georgia, Texas, LSU, A&M, even Oklahoma toward the top. But that middle chunk of like Bama, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina, I could be swayed one way or the other. Like they are all anomalies to me, which is fun.
Bama is a huge question mark this year.
I agree.
They've been very quiet this offseason.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't said much about who the quarterback's going to actually be at this point. And they haven't said much about how they want to improve the run game, which I know they probably worked tremendously hard on this offseason.
Right.
They brought over Derek Nix, from Auburn as the offense coordinator and to be their running backs coach, right? So he's helping with the run game there. So defensively, they lost two of the best guys to Ohio State in the transfer portal.
I know.
So you just don't find guys like that off the tree and just say, "Oh, we're going to replace them this year." All right. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that is very
just
true.
Happen like that. So we'll see what happens to Bama this year and everything, because as well as you know, Taylor, if it doesn't start off hot and it starts getting intense, it can go south really quick there.
It can get ugly real fast. I know. I can't believe we're as close as we are. 6 Saturdays left without college football, guys. It will be here so soon. Well, let's table our transfer portal conversation because we have run out of time here. And honestly, we've got a few more weeks of just kind of getting you ready for season. So that'll be a good talking point. Jay's got a list of guys to look out for. And obviously next week, SEC Media Days, we will recap all of it, talk about any of the big headlines, any debates, any conversations that come out of that. So with that, we will say goodbye here on SEC State of Mind. Let us know below kind of how you're feeling about these preseason expectations, maybe anyone that you think is way too low, way too high. Kind of give us your feedback on that. And we will be back next week to talk all of the Media Days action. Again, that will be Monday through Thursday down in Tampa. All of the action will be live on SEC Networks. Make sure you catch it there, follow along, and we'll get you updated on our episode next week. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. You can do that wherever you get your podcast. That is Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Amazon, Believe's website, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you prefer YouTube, what up? You can find us on Believe's YouTube channel every single week. There is a playlist titled SEC State of Mind that has every episode that we have done. So it's a good place to go and catch up specifically on the head coach interviews that we've had as of late. So that's going to do it for us this week. For Jason Campbell and our entire crew at Believe, I'm Taylor Davis. Have a great week, everybody.